Have you ever thought about what it would be like to awaken in a dark, freezing, clinically white room, alone with no recollection of who you are or why you're there? What's more, it wasn't a full restful night that you awoke from, but a deep, cryogenic sleep. How would you even begin to comprehend what that means? What level of your being would that fear penetrate? How debilitating would it be to be trapped deep underground, with no memories of better times to comfort you through the rising dread and isolating panic? Today's game, OverBlood, examines these themes. This unique Sony PlayStation title was created by Riverhillsoft in Japan in 1996 and published in the West in 1997 by Electronic Arts. You may not even know about this game, and less so the developer, who were only in business from 1991 to 2004. Surprisingly, when I was researching them, I discovered that they were based in the currently fastest growing city in Japan, Fukuoka, which is near to where I currently reside. They made a few titles during their lifespan, though almost all of these fell into the obscure mystery survival horror genre, and have generally been forgotten by time. OverBlood places us in the shoes of an amnesiac man who suddenly awakens from a cryogenic sleep to find that the capsule he was slumbering in is open and he is slowly freezing to death. The game's intro holds no punches, instantly dumping the player into a pot of boiling water, or maybe dry ice would be a more appropriate analogy in this case. If you either haven't read the instruction manual, so have no idea of the controls, or don't work well under pressure, you'll soon find your character sprawled out on the floor dead, returned to the title screen. OverBlood is an ambitious and very unforgiving game. If you aren't cautious, or thorough in searching everywhere, you will find yourself facing death many times over the course of your adventure. Saving often is almost a must. The real adventure begins once you don't have the panic of a constantly depleting health bar fraying away at your sanity. When that worry is out of the way, it's possible to casually explore the facility at your own pace, which gave me a huge sense of relief. You'll discover that your name is Raz Karcy, though you still don't know exactly what that means. Oh, and you also learn that the reason you were released was because of an unprecedented regional earthquake that has heavily damaged the facility that you were in, releasing a variant of a virus that turns an infected person into a mindless war machine, also known as a zombie. Great! It's not like we weren't already in a dire situation. What I found unique about this title was the way in which it controlled. Like a typical PS1 era survival horror, you are relegated to tank controls. Unlike other contemporaries of the time though, you can also kneel, push objects, and jump. All of these functions are necessary for survival. For example, if you examine a location whilst standing, you may find nothing, but then when you examine it again when you're kneeling, you'll discover an item or a switch. Whilst I can commend Riverhillsoft for thinking outside the box in regard to gameplay, I felt that this function made the act of exploration a little more tedious than it needed to be. There's also the awkward jumping, and the odd collision detection, which makes Raz push against thin air if he so much as brushes up against the side of an environmental object. The most frustrating thing about jumping is when you're asked to run and jump across a gap. The jump button is square and the run button circle, so you have to awkwardly crab your hand across the controls to execute the leap perfectly, lest you cause Raz to fall to his death. Pitfalls aren't the only obstacle stopping Raz from making his clean escape from the facility. In addition to near bottomless pits, Raz will also have to contend with machine electrical faults and a growing infection on his arm that threatens to turn him into a zombie, akin to those that you sometimes find yourself up against. Whilst most of the obstacles in the game aren't difficult to overcome in concept, the clunky controls may sometimes see you die. Also, don't try to outrun a moving transport, it won't end well for you. At some points throughout your adventure, Raz will be joined by another character. There are two companions who will join Raz at different times. The first is a robot that Raz affectionately names Peepo. Now, I'm going to stop you right now, sit you down, and tell you right here and now that the relationship between Raz and Peepo is the best part of this game. Whilst Peepo can only communicate in bloops and bleeps, he does it in such an endearing way that it's hard not to fall in love with it. Its dynamic with Raz is really cute and adds some humour to a game that would otherwise be isolating and dark. I really appreciated this aspect of the game and was mortified when I realised you could take control of Peepo and walk him off a ledge. The resulting confused and frantic beeps as he plummets to his death left my mouth agape in disbelief. The other character is Millie, another human that also appears to have lost her memory, although she seems to know a lot more than she initially lets on. During the course of the game, you will sometimes have to switch to using the secondary character in order to progress. For example, Peepo is able to extend his arm out, allowing you access to hard to reach places, whereas Millie has technological expertise, which allows her to navigate the computer systems found scattered throughout the facility. The key to success is making sure you not only use Raz's skills, but also rely on your companions too, as no one can go it alone in this world after all. Pressing R1 will switch to the companion, whereas pressing L1 will change the camera mode. The first mode is an over-the-head mode, the second is an over-the-shoulder mode, and the final is first person. Sometimes it pays to change your point of view to better assess your environment. It should also go without saying, but first person view is the best view for using a handgun. Whilst Raz can rely on skills that he must have learned from physical education class, he isn't infallible. As such, there are items that you must find around the environment that will allow you to progress. The game does have an inventory, but the puzzles are really light and never really require you to combine items, which made the puzzle solving easier. Most of the time, puzzles consist of using Raz's innate abilities and logic reasoning to survive. For example, pushing a statue so that when you take the anti-gravity device that was causing it to float, it doesn't crush your skull into your chest when the anti-gravity field is removed. When you select an item in your inventory, you'll see a brief description of it, which can also help to solve the puzzles. Most of the puzzles are intuitive, so if you get stuck, then kneel, jump, push, run, do anything you can think of to try to move the narrative forward. Chances are that you've probably just missed picking up an item. This leads to one of my biggest complaints that I have with this game, which is that you cannot see items that you need to collect on the field screen. You have to just blindly click everywhere, both standing and kneeling, hoping that you'll find what you need. If you get too stuck and are about to give up, the best way to cure yourself of frustration is to dance, and just give yourself over to it. The environments have sparse furnishings and are very empty, giving a feeling of desolation as you wander the many rooms and hallways. Due to being underground and knowing that the facility was damaged by an earthquake, there's always this constant crushing presence that hangs in the air, as though you're about to be buried by tons of debris at any given moment, which lends an edge of urgency to your attempt at escape. In any situation where your life is in mortal danger, be that from an enemy or an environmental hazard, your health bar will appear on the screen in the upper right, indicating how much life you have before you expire. Other times there may be a QuickTime event where you will need to press the correct button unprompted, though most of the time you probably will fail on that first attempt. At some points of the journey you will come across humans that have been mutated by the Ana virus. Unlike other survival horror titles, you cannot outrun these enemies by escaping to another room. It's either kill or be killed. Luckily, Raz has boxing skills from somewhere that come quite in handy for dispatching them, or alternatively he can use a handgun. I'd caution against the handgun if you want to stand a chance at beating the game. One thing that I thought was odd though was that Raz can punch the lights out of an infected creature, but then all of a sudden in the next cutscene he'll be apprehended by one, which is superior in strength. Excuse me, how is it that I just dispatched one with my bare hands, and now the exact same creature type is almost killing me inside an elevator? I kind of wish that the developers thought about this a little bit more. Early on you are provided with an item that allows you to save your progress, and you should take advantage of this and save often. I found that I always relied on saving before attempting something due to how many times I cluelessly died just from simply trying to interact with an object or accidentally walking down a death drop. In terms of the plot, I thought it was clever having a personal recording device being the save option, as it would serve as a recollection of everything that Raz and his companions accomplished through their adventure when found later if the facility happened to collapse through another aftershock. The game isn't really all that long, serving up around 4 to 5 hours of mystery and suspense depending on how quickly you are able to solve the puzzles. I felt that overall, whilst I enjoyed the level of mystery surrounding Raz, his companions, and the figure that we later see observing the whole situation, it wasn't too difficult to put 2 and 2 together and work the main plot points out well before you get the reveal at the end. It's a bit of a shame, as I felt that the premise was really interesting and one that wasn't explored in too much detail around the time of the game's release. Though I do have to wonder at the reason for the name of the game. Why OverBlood? We are not floating over a river of blood. We are not so over our mortal constructs that we forsake the very essence that provides us the means to live. So why the name? If any of you know why this game is called OverBlood, let me know in the comments. I'd love to know your theories. Differing from Resident Evil and coming more in line with Clock Tower 2, OverBlood is delivered to us as a full 3D experience. Whilst this causes a lack of detail in environmental objects and backgrounds overall, and made some of the areas unappealing, I felt that the style lent itself to the crushing feeling of emptiness and isolation that the game was trying to project to us. Yes, many of the environments do look the same, especially the corridors, but the overall area isn't too big, so navigation isn't difficult. Once you progress up a level in an elevator, you can't return to a previous floor, so exploration wasn't hampered by having a confusing layout or requiring you to backtrack to a floor that you've previously been on. The character models themselves are kind of bland and have this strange look to them. The still of Raz when he's walking through a door looks like he's about to tiptoe through a giant's lair over eggshells, the fear of shattering them and waking the giant in the forefront of his mind. The CGI cutscenes that sometimes pepper the narrative were interesting, and I enjoyed viewing them the first time, but I would have appreciated the ability to skip them. If you die, you have to rewatch any cutscene that occurred between your last save and when you died, which was very frustrating. Besides, of course, Raz's relationship with Peepo, the most standout feature of OverBlood for me was the music. One moment you have a haunting, atmospheric sound layered with low-key woman's wail, then the next you have film noir jazz as though a femme fatale has just stepped into the detective's office. My favourite track is called Residential Area, which plays in any of the previously inhabited areas of the facility. The woman's wail that plays over the synthesized sounds compounds the human condition with the reliance on technology to survive. At what point in our time on this earth will our dabbling in forbidden things like cell research and modification be enough? The voice acting is atrocious though. When I first started playing, I thought that I enjoyed it, especially the monologues that Raz would have with himself and with Peepo, but then when you added other characters into the mix, it kind of just became cheesy and irritating. Like a B-grade horror film, like I just couldn't turn it off.
Millie, is it too late for her too? But if a man created this virus, there must be a way for man to cure it. We must find a way for Millie's sake. Millie, can you hear me?
Raz! Oh, thank goodness you're back.
Though when I was doing some research and looking through the music, I did find the Japanese soundtrack, which actually contains the Japanese voice acting, which sounds much better. OverBlood is a short adventure taking around 4 to 5 hours to complete, depending on how thoroughly you explore the facility and how long you spend pondering the solutions to puzzles and your own existence. Whilst I can't say that it's on the same tier as, say, Resident Evil or Silent Hill, which tackled the genre better, I still would say that it's worth a playthrough. The characters are endearing, especially Peepo, and the game will keep you guessing right up to the end. In fact, there's some part of the ending that is still even a little unclear to me now, and open to interpretation, which I found to be a nice touch. If you temper your expectations before tackling this game, like you would some chocolate before biting into that snap crackle pop, you might find yourself surprised. I know I did. By the way, are there any games that you went into feeling like wasn't that great, but then the more you played and by the time you beat it, you changed your mind? Let me know in the comments. This has been Benoit with a review of OverBlood for the Sony PlayStation. If you enjoyed this review, please feel free to like and subscribe for more survival horror content. As always, thanks for watching, take care of yourselves, and I hope to see you all again soon. Bye bye for now.